Hello, and thanks so much for joining in again for our James discussion. We're finally to James chapter 3. We've kind of taken a break because of Thanksgiving, but we are back together with Miss Jane, our pastor's wife, and Miss Jenny, one of the members in our church, and we're ready just to dive right into James chapter 3 tonight. So if Miss Jane, if you'll go ahead and read James 3, 1 through 4 for us.
My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horse's mouth, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth.
Thank you. And remember, we're highlighting God's commands in blue, blue dew, pink promises, and yellow or gold for God, characteristics of God. So right off the bat there in that first verse, what kind of stood out there that you highlighted, Miss Jenny?
Well, there's a promise in number 1 that if you're going to take on the responsibility and be in a leadership position, you need to understand that you better take it seriously, because if you don't, you cause someone to fall, there are some heavy consequences that come with that.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of reminds me of the verse, to whom much is given, much is required, or the talents, the guys that buried their talents too. But so you better take it seriously when you're teaching or in charge of something. And then we go on and we start talking about a bridle. And what does a bridle do? You're probably the expert on bridle, Miss Jenny.
Controls the movement of the horse.
Okay. And are bridles very big?
They are not very big.
Very big.
No.
Do they hurt the horse?
Well, they can. Yeah.
But they're designed to if they get out of line. So.
Okay. And how many inches would you say a bridle is? Or
they are about 5 inches wide, and then some of them will have a port which will hit the roof of their mouth, and then they have a shank that hangs below the mouth, which gives you more leverage if you have to pull on them.
Okay. And how much would you say a grown horse weighs?
About 1,000 pounds.
1,000 pounds. So the small little 5-inch mechanism can control this big, powerful beast. And then we go on and we talk about the ships. And what controls a ship? How can you guide the ship? Or
a little helm or a rudder that's underneath the ship. And it's not very big, but that little object will control the whole large vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that something that little can control something that big.
Mm-hmm. And then let's go ahead and read verse 5 through 8, because those descriptions are heading somewhere. Miss Jenny, 5 through 8.
Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea, is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison.
Okay, so why do you think we were talking about this little bridle and this little helm for a ship? What's it comparing to in us, perhaps?
Because our tongue is little, but it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. And so like the bridle is little, but it's very powerful. So
the helm is little, but it can guide a whole ship. And our tongue, maybe 4 inches, can destroy a lot.
Can destroy a person, a reputation. It's very powerful.
And it's compared to a fire. It just takes a little spark to get the fire going, and then the whole building, city, forest is destroyed. Also, the serpents. I thought serpents and beasts. Verse 7, for every kinds of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents. We have pastors and Miss Jane's favorite animals listed there.
Yeah.
And of things in the sea is tamed and hath been tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. So it's just really interesting that it's talking about how we have dominion over these different animals, but can we even rule our own little tongue?
Right.
We have no discipline for that. A lot of people, a lot of times, what comes out of our mouth, we just have no discipline for because we're just in the moment and we don't think and we just spew things out of our mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And a lot of people, I think we discussed it last chapter, but a lot of people say, well, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
But that's not really how God looks at it. He looks on it as sin. We know that we're supposed to bridle our tongue, and yet we blame that on just being our personality, and it's not. I'll go ahead and read 9 through 12. Therefore bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. So what are the two things that we often do with our mouth?
We bless and we curse. Those are basically the two things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's interesting that the mouth is the only thing that puts forth two opposite things. All these other things, the fountain, the fig tree, these things are all sources, and they all put forth the same thing. But our tongue's not like that. It is a source also, but it blesses and curses out of the same mouth. And that doesn't happen anywhere else in nature except our mouth.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Because you're not going to have a great branch putting off figs.
No.
Salt water and fresh, they just can't mix. And blessings and cursing, should they mix?
Even our own human bodies, there are other things we put out of our bodies, but it's only one thing. Your human body two things don't come out of the same thing.
I think people show themselves, when they do both. They send out blessings and cursings, out of the mouth proceedeth what's in your heart. And so, when both are coming out, it's like you're kind of revealing who you are and that, in that sense. And, that's why, you're supposed to watch your mouth. And in Book of Psalms, it talks a lot about your tongue and controlling your tongue and taming your tongue because, out of the same mouth proceedeth both blessings and cursings. And what do people remember? The bad stuff. They're not going to remember the good stuff. I can say something bad about somebody, and they're going to remember that. And 10 people come behind and say something good about that person, and they're going to remember the bad.
Right.
And so out of your mouth, just proceeds what's in the person's heart. So, and people always remember the bad.
Right. I mean, you probably can remember things that were said to you years and years ago that that hurt you or wounded you, or you just could never forget that or get past that. So our tongue is powerful.
Yes, very.
Life and death are in the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Miss Jane, would you read 13 through 16?
Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthy, sensual, and devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work.
Okay, so is there a righteous bitterness? Can you have righteous bitterness or righteous strife?
No. You can be angry and sin not, but you can't have those. And wisdom, when you have wisdom, you can be angry and sin not.
Mm-hmm. But if you're holding bitterness in your heart or there's strife happening, is that of the Lord?
No.
No. It says it's from It's sensual, devilish, and it's not from above. And also, it calls it wisdom, but in first chapter 15, it says, this wisdom descendeth not from above. So it's called wisdom, but more so, I think, the wisdom of the world is what that's referring to, and not...
Well, how many times have you heard, you have every right to be mad, you have every right to be angry, and you have every right to speak your mind. That's earthly wisdom. Godly wisdom says, choose your words, choose your time, choose, make sure the spirit is right. If you're going to be angry, make sure everything is right, and just don't blurt it out. And, so there's a difference between earthly wisdom and godly wisdom, for sure.
And especially, with COVID and everything that's going on in the world right now, the political tensions, there's a lot of strife. It's dividing families, churches, a nation.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely is not from above, and it's doing a lot of damage.
For sure.
And then, Miss Jenny, will you finish it up, 17 and 18?
But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Interesting turn of events there, I think. But wisdom that is from above is first. And then it lists a lot of the characteristics of the fruits of the Spirit. And the earthly wisdom is earthly, sensual, devilish, just anger. But the wisdom that is from above. And you can be angry, and you can go to that person and with the gentleness, meekness, and just say, I'm angry. You made me mad. And there's a right way to handle that. And it's the having the fruit of the Spirit, or the wisdom that comes from above.
And I often think of that verse, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. And a lot of times we get bent out of shape about the stupidest things. I went to get my tag renewed the other day, and the office was closed. So then I had to drive clear to Girard. And, it was like, really? But in the scope of things, was that a big deal? No. A lot of times they're not big deals. We just make them into a big deal.
And we can agree to disagree, and we can live peaceably among men, agreeing to disagree. I don't see your way, but, you don't see my way, but that's okay. We have differing opinions, and that's okay. And we don't have to be down each other's throat or hate each other because your opinion's different from mine. So
throughout the book of James, in James chapter 1, we saw about the tongue, how, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. And then I believe in James chapter 2, we had faith without works is dead was the main message of James chapter 2.
And in James chapter 3, he goes back to the tongue, which tells me that the people he was writing to obviously had a problem, as we all do, with our tongue and knowing what to speak and when to speak and how to speak it. And so...
And I also find it interesting that there were about 14 commands in the first chapter, and now that was one of them, and now we're really honing in on the tongue and bridling our tongue. Any other thoughts?
Well, just that we always need to remember that what comes out of our mouth, it speaks volumes about us and who we are and who we represent. And, if we're trying to represent the Holy Spirit, we're trying to represent God and show love and compassion, then, we really need to, let God have control over us and make sure that, what's in our heart proceeds out of our mouth at all times. And that's hard, easier said than done, for sure.
Right. Kind of back to the basics, but we'll just, pray that we'll be better representatives of Christ and bridle our tongue. Thanks for listening. I hope it was a blessing.